Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's the regular City Council meeting on Tuesday, February 27th at 6:32 p.m. It's the meeting of the council, also acting as successor agency to the redevelopment agency, the Rialto Utility Authority, and the Rialto Housing Authority. Madam City Clerk, could you do a roll call, please?
Mayor Robertson,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Caricellos,
Present.
Councilmember Trujillo,
Present.
Councilmember Scott,
Present.
City Treasurer Ed Carrillo,
Present.
City Attorney Eric Bell,
I'm present.
City Manager David Cummings.
Present.
Okay. All right, and if everybody would now be so kind as to stand and join Mayor Pro Tem Caricellos as he leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for our invocation. Okay.
Right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you would, Pastor DeAndre McBride for Sunrise Church is going to lead us in invocation. Thank you.
Let's bow our heads. Dear God, we thank you, Lord God, for your grace, mercy, and sovereignty, Heavenly Father, over the city of Rialto, Heavenly Father. Lord, we uplift the mayor and all the city councils and the leaders, Heavenly Father. Lord, we pray for all of our first responders, Lord God, our police chief, as well, Lord God, as our fire chief and all the law enforcement officers as well, Lord God, as the firefighters and paramedics, Heavenly Father. Lord, we uplift all of our educational systems from high schools, middle schools, as well as elementaries. That your love, grace, and mercy be upon them. In your precious Son, Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. And now we will move into our city attorney who will report out on matters of in closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. There were two primary items on the council's closed session this evening. The first was a conference with legal counsel with regard to 6 items of existing litigation. There were 3 cases and 3 binding arbitrations. The city council heard a report both from the city attorney's office and special counsel with regard to all of those items. There was no reportable action. The mayor did recuse herself from 2 of those items, which are designated on the closed session report under her name. The final action was a public employee performance evaluation, title city manager. That item has not been completed and will be continued over to the end of the session this evening.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And now the next piece will be, we're doing presentations and proclamations. I believe there's a certificate of recognition to Rialto High that is not occurring tonight.
No, the next meeting.
Okay, sorry, nobody told me. Stay tuned for the next meeting. Okay, and so now we'll move to communication and oral communications.
We have one speaker, Marco Antonio.
Mr.
Marco.
Antonio?
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Marco Antonio Villalobos, la liga es de Rialto. Estamos aquí en la liga de más de 20 años y hemos sufrido muchos, no están dando el lugar que nosotros merecemos. Es una liga de Rialto de niños.
The resident in question has lived in the city for over 20 years and is discussing a matter surrounding a neighborhood with kids.
Ok, nosotros tenemos el permiso del Yo Silva y el día 30 de enero supuestamente tenemos el permiso pues, hasta el último de febrero y cuando fui a verlo del permiso resultó que no tenía permiso que porque no tiene el bar run de las huellas de los coach, que lo cual nunca me lo pidieron y rápido me suspendieron el permiso.
So he's talking about a soccer league in reference to the kids, and that they didn't have a correct permission from the city to practice. He gave specific dates. ¿El día de marzo qué?
No,
Enero 30, ¿qué pasó?
me quitaron el permiso.
So the permission was revoked on the 30th of January. Y luego?
Me dijeron que no tenía permiso, me suspendieron.
Okay, so they suspended the permission to practice the league for the children.
A lo largo de los años, nosotros hemos tenido varios atletas, pues están uno en primera división de Bélgica, de la selección femenil de México, femenil, y hemos trabajado y me ha costado mucho, la verdad, mucha pelea. No soy una persona conflictiva, tengo referencias de distrito de Rialto, pero cuando yo voy a pedir algo al meeting, a la ciudad de Rialto, nunca hay tiempo para mí. Siempre están ocupadas las personas que deben atenderme, que deberían atender a la comunidad de Rialto.
So he's saying that his league has had women from the National Soccer League come and visit. Can we hear you? All right, so he's saying that his league has had women from the National Soccer League come and visit, and that he doesn't consider himself to be a very combative person when he comes to these meetings and asking for permission for his soccer team to continue practicing. So he says when he comes here, he feels as though that there is self-interest from the people that he presents the information to.
El Samsung Park, varias veces lo he tratado de aplicar, pero me dicen que no, que es para la comunidad. Y resulta que ahorita está un grupo, no sé de dónde sea, grupo nuevo, y ya tiene el permiso lunes y miércoles. Y a mí, que ya tengo más de 20 años, tengo bastantes niños de Rialto, no me lo han aprobado, y la verdad no sé cuál es el motivo o razón. De Samsung Park, New Park.
So he's saying that the existing league that practices on Mondays and Wednesdays has permission at that park, and he feels that he should be entitled to that because he had that before, and feels that it's unjust that the existing practicing team is practicing there and he can't.
Hace como un año y medio, por motivo razón, la corporación no me pagó un fee, y inmediatamente no me dio una oportunidad de arreglar mi situación, y tajantemente me quitaron el permiso. Esa vez fue la primera vez, y no me gusta a mí pues hablar de otras organizaciones, pero no miden el mismo, con la misma ¿cómo se dice? La opinión solamente yo hago un error y luego me quitan el permiso, y otras organizaciones hacen algo y no pasa nada. Y eso no es justo para nosotros y para atrás de mis coches y los niños.
He feels that other leagues get permission in terms of what they're allowed to get away with, and he feels that if he misses a fee or something, that he is unjustly held to a different standard, and it's unfair to his coaches and the teammates on the team of the league.
Esta medalla la acaba de ganar el sábado un equipo de Rialto, representó a la ciudad de Rialto, nacional. Aquí está la prueba, tengo las fotos que representaron a Rialto con mucho honor, y a pesar, me da sentimiento, porque a pesar de las trabas que nos ponen, nosotros seguimos luchando, y aquí están las pruebas. Un equipo de Rialto ganó en Las Vegas, aquí tengo la prueba, ¿no? Y tengo las fotos, y aún así seguimos luchando. A pesar de todo, aquí está de repente un equipo de Rialto con honor, representó la ciudad de Rialto.
So the medal, he says, is proof of a team that has brought honor to the city of Rialto, that has won leagues in Las Vegas, and that they're going to keep fighting for what they feel is right, and that their team is very representative of the city.
Okay, por último, espero que me escuchen mi voz. No es amenaza, pero si no hacen algo, voy a traer mis niños, mis coches aquí a la ciudad, a la reunión, como antes pasó, con el señor Yovaca nos apoyó y si no hay respuesta voy a tener que traer a los niños de Rialto para que escuchen porque porque la verdad pues me estoy cansado de tantos que no veo, no ponen balance a favor, siempre están en contra, no sé, yo estoy luchando, soy una persona honesta y también soy coach y también entreno niños desde hace más de 30 años. También soy referee también.
Okay.
He said he's been coaching for over 30 years. He says he hopes that you hear his voice and that it's not a threat, but he will bring the students or the team league in question so they can come hear the proceedings. And then he referenced a moment with Joe Baca where he had supported them and the league had come to the city council meeting. So he's saying that he doesn't want to get to that point, but that he feels that action needs to be taken.
Okay, thank you.
Ok, por último, nomás las canchas de Jerry's Park no me permiten jugar los papás, mamás, hermanos over de 18 años y yo quisiera saber en qué parte del mundo no pueden jugar los papás juntos en familia. Tenemos que dividirlo porque no se pueden jugar juntos en familia. Que mi liga es una liga familiar. He pasado un problema, pero son leves, de más de 20 años, no tengo ningún problema, más que un problema que tuve y por eso me está afectando.
Okay.
So he mentions Jerry Eves Park, and he says that his league is a familial league where parents can play with children, and he feels that it's unfair that the standards don't let him do that with his team.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, you guys.
Okay, the city manager is Mr. Carmi, and could you give him a card? And I also think that he will probably let him know, have the assistant city manager that handles community services coordinate with him to find out his concerns. Okay? All right, any other oral communications?
No, that's it.
All right, thank you. So now we will move into doing what city council should consider removing or continuing items on the agenda or anything that you feel is something you need to abstain from. And Mr. Carmody, I'm going to get it right, Carmody.
Harmony will bring you harmony.
That's right, maybe.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I would like to ask that one item be not considered on your agenda tonight. There's 3 public hearings. The first one, which is tab 1 of your agenda, concerns the water and wastewater rates. I'm requesting that the City Council table this item until a future date, which will be determined. City staff will bring back to you a new request to set that public hearing date, and we will follow proper 218 state law notification requirements at that time.
Okay, thank you. So anybody else have any other items they want to hold or abstain from? If not, if you have something you'd like to
Yes.
abstain from, too.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Tab 2 is a public hearing to consider amendment on Foothill. I have a business on Foothill Boulevard, and I will be recusing myself and leaving the dais on tab 2.
Okay. Anyone else?
With those notes, I'd like to move the consent items.
Second. Moved by Councilmember Trujillo and seconded by Councilmember Scott. Any objections? Hearing none, with the exception of Mayor Pro Tem Carazellis recusing himself on tab 2. All right, so we will now move to tab 2.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'm wondering, were there individuals that came tonight to speak on tab 1?
No one that I have that came to speak on tab 1. I just have 3 letters that
Nobody?
came
Okay.
in the mail.
I'm
but-
just asking that because I thought we should give them the opportunity to at least speak.
Okay, thank you. Given that the noticing and everything, they could definitely, and we could take it as just oral communications because we're going to reschedule it, but fine. Okay, so with that, let's move into tab 2, please.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. Colby Cataldi, Director of Community Development. The project before you today is the Foothill Central Specific Plan Amendment. It is a project that has been in the works for 2 years. It started back in February of 2022. It was fully funded by a SCAG grant when it did get initiated. That grant timeline has now expired. It's come to a conclusion here over that 2-year period. The grant funds have been fully spent on the project, and staff is before you with the final draft form pending your approval. We do have a consultant here today from WSP, it's Mr. David Souls, who will be giving you a more detailed presentation on the matter. But the overall objective of the plan is to remove barriers, entitlement barriers from the public and development communities so they can go ahead and move forward with applications for more creative housing projects, commercial projects, and mixed-use projects. These are the things that the plans were targeting and focused strategically on. And the plan has been well coordinated with our housing element and our overlay project that you all approved back in July of 2023. So we are in sync with those project policy documents as well. So I will pass the torch here to David, and he can give you the more detailed presentation. And we stand here to answer questions, staff and the consultant.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. And thank you for the introduction. So I'll jump into it, starting with a bit of background on what a specific plan is. It is a comprehensive planning and zoning document for a defined geographic area that is connected to and implements the general plan. So the Foothill Central Specific Plan update is actually a combination of 2 existing specific plans, the Central Area Specific Plan and the Foothill Boulevard Specific Plan. The Foothill Boulevard Specific Plan is fairly recent. It's from 2010. The Central Area or Downtown Specific Plan is very old. It's from 1983. And so this was a great opportunity to update the downtown area and also update the Foothill Boulevard area while also being able to carry forward certain elements of the 2010 plan since it's fairly recent. This is a map of the 2 areas that the 2 plans cover now. The specific plan update doesn't change these boundaries, it'll just combine them. And here we have a timeline of the process that we got to, starting in February of 2022 through today. We started with a lot of background research, and then in the spring, around April, jumped into community outreach, community and stakeholder outreach. We started with some pop-up events, workshops, and meetings. And then that outreach really was essential to the process throughout the process, all the way through the end of last year, taking us to the final plan that we have today. And in addition to the community and stakeholder outreach, another driving factor of helping develop this plan was the vision statement. This is a statement that was presented to the Economic Development Committee in June of 22, and then the Planning Commission in September of 22. And I'll read it since it is an important statement for the development. For the next 30 years, Central Rialto will continue to be the heart of the city, defined by its hometown character and functioning as an important job center and transportation hub. The historic Route 66 Foothill Boulevard will continue to serve as a gateway corridor through the city and to the downtown core. The Foothill Central Specific Plan area will continue to evolve as a lively mixed-use destination that integrates housing for all incomes and ages with shopping, restaurants, entertainment, and civic and arts uses, and preserves existing landmarks. The specific plan will be a tool to implement high-quality development standards along Foothill Boulevard and within Central Rialto that complement and enrich a public realm that is safe, green, and beautiful, incorporating landscaping, lighting, and public art. Streets and sidewalks will be designed for all ages, abilities, and modes, including pedestrians, bicyclists, transit, and cars. Here's an image from one of our first public outreach events, and this was at a community event back in the spring of 2022, where we received a lot of helpful information on what people would like to see in the neighborhood, and both in terms of development, in terms of shopping and services. Also, there was a lot of conversations about safety and mobility and getting around the city. We also held in-person and online workshops. This is a screenshot from one of our online workshops, where we were also able to gather a lot of information in a participatory style. In addition to those, we had an online survey open and available for a couple of months, I believe, to gather more input for folks who want to continue to give us input or were unable to attend meetings or pop-ups. So we able to get a lot of good information. In addition to the community engagement input, we conducted a market study to analyze both existing conditions for residential and commercial markets, and also to forecast potential future demand. So, and the market study was set for the as a date of 2045, which is the timeline of this plan. Some of the key findings from the market study really kind of converge on this gap between supply and demand, especially in the residential market. And so there's extremely low vacancy rates on multifamily residential in the plan area, for all multifamily residential, and then especially for one-bedroom units in the plan area. And not surprisingly, corresponding with that was significant year-over-year rent increases. So there's the identified demand, supportable demand for additional residential in the plan area. So some highlights from what this specific plan includes and intends to promote are increasing opportunity for residential and commercial development, creating simplified zoning designations and the associated development standards, providing the pathway for improvements to the mobility network and streetscapes, and then as part of it, all specific plans, identifying the infrastructure that would be associated with this allowable additional growth, and creating an implementation strategy to create a path towards that infrastructure and other improvements. And so those are the key parts of this specific plan. And another note is that as part of this plan, we deferred to the existing parking standards throughout the area. So to touch on this first highlight of the plan, we looked at how to best increase the opportunity for residential and commercial through first preserving the existing housing stock, and then promoting incentives and creating a additional opportunity in the market for greater densities in residential development and commercial development and mixed-use development. And by doing that, we're also maximizing the potential for residential development that is in proximity to businesses and services. The origin of this really, though, does come from the city's six-cycle adopted housing element, which set densities for these two opportunity areas as identified in the housing element. And that would be 35 dwelling units per acre for the Foothill Boulevard and 48 dwelling units per acre for the central area. And this is on the screen now is the specific program within the housing element that discusses those densities. And so we took those from the housing element, we transferred them into the specific plan, thus this will be enacting that rezoning. So here are two images to give you an idea of what those densities look like. On the left is the 35 dwelling units per acre, example of a project like that. And that would be for the Foothill Boulevard area. And then an example on the right of 48 dwelling units per acre for the central area. Another highlight of the plan is identifying improvements to the mobility network and to the streetscape. And this has a couple elements that go into it. One was that there is an existing plan for bus rapid transit along these corridors. And so as part of that, the plan recognizes that and creates and includes a streetscape that would complement that and support a BRT. That said, the streetscape also can function as a standalone improvement that improves comfort and safety and accessibility for all modes of transportation. And, starting with the most vulnerable mode of pedestrians through cyclist transit and motorists. And here's some images from the plan. The one on the left is the proposed gateway over Riverside Avenue at Foothill Boulevard, to enter the downtown area and create an additional opportunity for identity building. Also identity building and wayfinding on the top right is proposed signs for the entire plan area. And then on the bottom of that, on the top right, that rendering of the sign also has a space on the bottom of it for a plaque that would identify Foothill Boulevard as historic Route 66. You might recognize the images on the right. These are images that we carried forward and updated from the 2010 Foothill Boulevard specific plan. And so the bottom right there is from the Foothill Boulevard specific plan, the inclusion of a planted median on Foothill Boulevard, upgraded crosswalks and shade structures. So the plan also includes the required infrastructure improvements to meet the allowable built-out specific plan, so there's additional commercial and residential in this area. And so it includes information on stormwater, water, all utilities, and identifies what is required to meet those needs of the additional density, essentially. And this is part of all specific plans in the state as a requirement by the state. Another part of the plan is that what we were able to do in this, as part of this plan, is take the existing zoning districts and development standards and design guidelines and really simplify them into a shorter list of zones, and a very concise, clear set of design standards that still provide great opportunities for high quality design, architectural design, and development that will help improve the aesthetics and help guide the development of these two corridors. And again, those the zoning does include densities, and again, those densities are coming from the adopted housing element. These are some of the diagrams are included in the specific plan to help folks understand what is allowable in terms of height and setbacks, floor area ratio for each of the 7 zones. So the final part of this specific plan is an implementation strategy, which is another requirement by the state, where the plan lays out the actions and the programs and the projects that are proposed in the specific plan, and then provides strategies, timelines, and funding possibilities to get the city there. So I'll just close out with 2 more slides. The first is the existing zoning map here. You can see the current mix of zones for Foothill and Riverside and the surrounding streets. And then the proposed zoning here. Should point out that part of our rezoning here, we did not make any changes to the residential zones. We made sure to maintain the single-family residential, the increased density residential, the multifamily residential. Those have not changed. But we did find there was a great opportunity to consolidate the zoning along both Riverside and Foothill Boulevard in terms of consolidating the commercial zones and the services, and then creating these 2 key zones, so the downtown mixed use and the Foothill mixed use zones, which will provide that additional opportunity in the area. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take questions. Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing, and I would now ask the city clerk if we have anyone who has put in a notice to speak regarding the specific plan. Okay, well, I'd entertain a motion
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Trujillo to close and seconded by Councilmember Scott. Any objections? Hearing none, the public hearing portion is closed. Now, I don't know if you have questions, I as well. Councilmember Scott.
I have a lot of questions. I'm looking at the development standard sheet. Can you tell me when that was put into place and how it got put into place? Or is it part of what we're approving tonight?
Are you looking at the diagrams as part of the development standard?
This
Yes.
sheet right here, development standards.
Mhm.
I assume you prepared it.
Yes. So that was introduced in an early draft of the plans, probably about a year ago, I think.
A year ago.
Yeah.
Do you know why it wasn't brought to the Economic Development Committee for input and to look at?
I'm sorry?
I think the question was, why wasn't this brought to Economic Development Committee to look at these standards, these ratio standards, because I know we had somewhat of extensive discussions about, especially the sections for the foothill corridor. And this is the first that we're seeing these standards, proposed standards.
Yeah, the project itself went to the Economic Development Committee on 3 different occasions. One was,
I noted it in. it's
I'm
noted here. We
asking the
got that.
questions right now, excuse me?
Okay, go ahead.
So would you address me?
yes, sir.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, when was this put into place?
So this would have been reviewed by the Economic Development Committee in the draft that was
This
presented
was not
in
reviewed by
June.
the Economic Development Committee.
Okay. So that was the last presentation to the Economic Development Committee. was
And
June
we
20.
continue to move things forward in this city without any input from the community and the Rialto City Council, which we all live here also. So when I see 5-story, 7-story buildings being approved tonight, it deeply concerns me that there's been no communication with us.
Okay. So we conducted 15 different stakeholder meetings or public engagement meetings.
I didn't go to stakeholder meetings.
But in-
Council members shouldn't go to stakeholder meetings so that they influence the committee on what the community on what they think. You should hear directly from the community.
But in those public meetings were planning commission updates, city council updates, and economic development committee updates. And then June 23 is when the draft plan would have been reviewed by the economic development committee, which would include this material as well.
Can you tell me when the area from Sycamore to Willow and from Foothill down to almost First was a zoning change was made to make that all multifamily residential?
From Sycamore to Willow?
Yeah. Because it's on the proposed, but the existing also, so do you know when that took place?
I would need to go through the project notes. Councilmember Scott, I don't have the
Okay, so
date.
you guys are not really ready to answer questions tonight, obviously. How many projects are in the city currently on hold because we're waiting for these zoning changes to occur?
We don't have any projects in here that are on hold pending these improvements.
No projects?
No.
Nobody's waiting for projects for this zoning to come into place? Madam Mayor, I can't vote on this tonight in the way it's at. We haven't looked at these building heights. We should be seeing what's behind some of these areas, and I think
Right.
it's mostly residential.
I agree
And
with
to be
you.
putting 7-story buildings up against residential, I think is a little ridiculous. And I'm concerned about this area from Sycamore to Willow, because you're just opening up a door for developers to come in and buy out small residential, single-family residential residents and build multifamily residential. And if that's what your plan is, you need to be straightforward with the community about it, because I think this community has some say-so. Just because you want to do all this because Arena and comply with the numbers that the ridiculous state of California has given you, I'm not going to support that. So I would like to continue this item.
Well, I would, and that's fine, I heard you, but I'd like to also give Councilmember Trujillo an opportunity to share his comments, because I have some as well.
I have the same concerns on this issue too, because I think in the beginning when we were looking at the numbers and we had the parking issues that I was kind of trying to highlight. I had a sense that staff also wanted to kind of build up the city in this way. I had some concerns about that. I still have concerns about parking. There's some, you mentioned, meeting certain parking standards. But I'm sure a lot of our buildings in the city are meeting parking standards, and they still have a number of residents that park on some of our thoroughfares, creating public safety issues there. And so I have concerns about the density and the way that you're creating the development standards here. But not only that, I saw that you mentioned transit, you mentioned all these other kind of value-added portions of this plan, and, you know, I've been sitting here kind of talking about, you know, the rapid transit that's gonna be heading through Foothill Boulevard in the next couple of years. Right now, the Omnitrans is finishing up its west end connector. As soon as that's over with, their high volume is right here on Foothill Boulevard. I'm hoping that you're able to kind of work with that agency to figure out how that's gonna work here. You know, you have the Metro Link, it's gonna have, you know, also separation of grades coming up on some of the funding opportunities we're seeking. Hopefully you're taking that into account as well. There's a lot of changes that are happening on the transit side, and I just want to make sure that's being captured here. But the development center is something that I've always had concerns about, mostly because, you know, we also have parking issues in the city, and we, you know, we're adding all these units without really addressing that. The other thing I was, and I don't even know if you've even had a plan to kind of bring in those different agencies as part of an input session with them, because they have their own projects that they're going to get ready to start planning, and I don't know if you've ever had a discussion with them on what that's going to look like. You mentioned a number of kind of gutters, sidewalks being planned for the area. I saw for the corridors you have certain structures that you're already planning, but all that has to be kind of coordinated with all the other agencies that have plans for our corridors as well. You know, we're not the only agency looking at building and redesigning our community. So I'm hoping you sit down with them and just have a good kind of coordinated kind of strategy plan on how that's gonna move forward, because I think you're gonna find a conflict on some of these plans that you have in mind. But those are my comments that I have for this, and I look forward to seeing what kind of changes are gonna happen as this is being tabled. Thanks.
Okay. My comments are along the same line. This does not look like the document that has been noted in the staff report and also in the presentation on the timelines of what has come to us and when. And I think I'm somewhat familiar with the timelines and the grants and the money, and I remember we even put in an application for regional planning funds that we received that was supposed to be a specific regional plan for focusing on the central area, but also focusing on the whole community from Foothill South and Merrill North to each westbound boundaries of the city to the east boundaries of the city. But it seems like the focus you're saying on the downtown is with some funds that came about back in 2022. I'm very confused because I know that the grant we just received, notice was given to us in 2023. So then I'm wondering where those proposed dollars, or if they've been provided yet. I too have never seen this stacking and standards and where it would apply, but I know we've been having an extensive conversation about the Foothill Corridor. And then what we've talked about it being possibly mixed use and an overlay not required, but definitely the concerns we've had, and you may not have been a part of those conversations, but we even went down to various parcels, wondering why one parcel across the street could be identified for changing from commercial to mixed use, whereas the parcel on the northeast corner where the Chase Bank is, which is the leased property, we had not looked at the possibility that any day Chase could move, and that could be an opportunity for revisiting. I'm looking at these pretty pictures and thinking, where did this come from? Because the one that talks about an entry statement to the central downtown at Riverside looking south Foothill, we've never seen that. That's a new piece, a new conceptual thought that it's like, so just in my general looking at it, I'm like, well, what are we doing? Where will traffic travel if we have parking on one side and a big wide medium, which looks like a walkway or a pathway or a bikeway? It's pretty pictures, but it doesn't make sense for me right now in understanding what we envision versus what we have. Even to the point when Councilmember Scott asked, is anything on hold? I was looking to see on the current zoning, as you well know, 308 North Riverside Avenue ended up with, had a proposal to construct something or reconstruct the existing office building, and somehow it caught fire and burned down. And so now it's no longer a remodel, it's something that's going to be new construction. And then I'm saying, well, if nothing's in the shop, you have it designated to possibly be downtown mixed-use zoning, but would that mean that there would be an expectation that they would put in a mixed-use facility because there's nothing to build on? Or, you know, if we pass this right now, it's not, the questions aren't clear here, but I've asked, what is the plans for 308? You know, is there an opportunity for some multifamily residential? It doesn't look like it is. It looks like it's on the streets that are a couple of blocks off of the main corridor, and the main corridor, and off there is currently single-family residential in most of the areas that you would be proposing for multifamily residential. The lots in that area seem to be very small. You'd have to buy out a couple of houses in order to make something happen that would be significant. I'm just really trying to understand, and I look at the timelines, and you said you came to the Economic Development Committee meeting on April 27th, 2022, and the Planning Division, a presentation, and we were talking about always the foothill. I've yet to really see the downtown, because I think we were talking about the opportunity for more business and density activity. And so then you said you brought it again on June 29th, 2022. The dates aren't lining up for me. I'm trying to understand how often would we talked about Foothill. I know we were focused on Foothill. I don't remember the extensive discussion for Central. You made notations of times that you've gone out, that there's been outreach and everything, but there's no numbers. I haven't seen any gross numbers. If so, how many people did you actually impact? Was there any signing in? I mean, just to be in locations. Unless I missed it, I was thumbing through here to see if there was some kind of a log on comments from people, and I didn't see it. And maybe you could tell me, is it in this document so that we'd understand? So I too, I don't know what the timeline is. I think I heard in the beginning that we're up against a crunch line for lose it, grant money, that either it's got to be expended or lost. Is that true?
The grant has gone through its entire timeframe of the 2-year period, and the grant funds have been used to build the work product today and then execute all the public engagement events that we conducted.
Well, I think because this is a public hearing, I am at a point where I concur with them. I think we're very concerned with what we see as the final product, and some of this presentation seems to have taken, in my mind, a shift away from, I think we even talked about, and I'm extremely concerned when we talk about the entries for the Foothill corridor. Given what I've seen and what has happened, unfortunately, on Baseline, I'd be extremely hesitant to even entertain any rockscaping activities. It doesn't, and then that's still a commercial corridor with, as Councilmember Trujillo says, there was plans before for us to have the BMX or the express bus down Foothill, and there was some actions that were taken when people weren't paying attention, and we ended up with that express going to the west end first, and now it will still be able to hopefully sometime come back. So I agree that we need to figure out how does that play into what we see as our design, because it doesn't look like we have that thought for Foothill corridor. It looks like and I'm concerned with how the BMX is laid out thus far in San Bernardino. It's calling it BMX or SBX? Yeah, I keep saying, the SBX, how it laid out in San Bernardino, how the problems were for the commercial, the businesses along that corridor. And then I'd like to see how it's being laid out in the West End. I don't think it's got the same level of disruption to the commercial corridor and the business corridor on the West End as it did in the East End with the SBX going through hospitality and from Cal State all the way over to Loma Linda. So what is your guys'
Madam
motions?
Mayor, I'd also like to point out that in that multifamily residential area, there are a number of historical homes there. I don't see how you convert them to multifamily housing without a fight from our community. And I'd like to know if you intend to take these properties or try to take these properties through eminent domain. So all this has to be talked about before I'm willing to move ahead with any of this. And this page here, we're showing the proposed and existing zoning, that's widened from what we were originally shown. So I don't know how any of this happened, but I make the motion to table this item.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Scott to table it, and it's been seconded by Councilmember Trujillo. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. All right, thank you. And now we will move on to tab 3.
Mayor and Council, the next public hearing, tab 3 of your agenda, pertains to the placement of liens for delinquent refuse on accounts for the third quarter of 2023. There are 54 residential and 10 commercial properties on the delinquency list. Amy Crow, city's administrative analyst in facilities and maintenance, will present the staff report.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the council. This evening, I request that the City Council conduct a public hearing for the placement of liens for delinquent refuse collection accounts for the third quarter of 2023. On January 23rd, 2024, the City Council approved the request to set the public hearing for this evening, February 27th, 2024, to review and consider the placement of liens related to delinquent refuse. Notices were mailed to the owners of the properties of the 54 residential and 10 commercial properties shown in the attachment 1 on February 1st, 2024. At this time, I would request that the City Council conduct a public hearing and take public testimony considering the placement of the liens against delinquent properties identified on Exhibit A of the resolution, and adopt resolution number 8192 authorizing the filing of the liens against the properties for delinquent refuse accounts with the San Bernardino County Auditor Controller Recorder's Office. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Madam City Clerk, is there anyone who has expressed an interest to speak to this public hearing item?
No.
All right, entertain motion.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Scott and seconded by Councilmember Trujillo to close the public hearing. Any objections? Hearing none, it's closed. I have a question, and I don't know if Councilmember Scott, you have your light on. Did you have a question? Okay. Well, I just have one. I noticed under the commercial service addresses, and there was a rather large one on line 9, 128 South Riverside Avenue. It seems as though, isn't 128 South Riverside Avenue in the block between First Street and Rialto Avenue?
I don't know.
Okay.
I would have to check a map on that one.
Well, I would think we might need to start noting this. I mean, I guess when I see, and I asked that partly because, if I'm mistaken, we own some little property there in some areas. So, I mean, are we putting a lien against the city? Are we not paying our water bill?
I'll check. I mean,
Could
this
you
is
check
trash,
on that? I mean,
trash service, so if it's a city facility.
I'm sorry, but I, Okay, well, it says one, and I know that, but it says south, it's south of First. And so south of First puts it south of, yes, but here's, yeah, okay. Thank you for giving. And where is First Street? First is up there, see, so they're right above this, because that's where they are. Now, the chamber is above First. And so this is something that is down by, okay. Well, anyway,
I would have to talk.
that's, I just know between First and Rialto, it tends to be the numbers. And so I would hope that if it's, I think we have just one facility in there, but it doesn't look like it's the piece that the city has possession of.
I'll double check
Okay.
tomorrow with Vertec once
All
I
right.
get to the office.
Okay. And with that, anybody else? If not, I entertain a motion to move on the,
So moved.
okay, it's been moved by
Second.
Councilmember Trio and seconded by Councilmember Scott. No objections, motion carries. Thank you. Now tab number 4. And again, Mr.
Thank you.
Harmony. Has Harmony.
This first item of new business this evening, which is found at tab 4 of your agenda, returns for council consideration. This report pertains to the civil engineering services for design of a grant-funded project, the Bemis Elementary School Safe Routes to Schools project. After this project is designed, we put out to bid as required by state law. The city's Director of Maintenance and Facilities, Tim Sullivan, is here tonight and will present the staff report.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carmody, and good evening, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of council.
Okay.
Staff is requesting that the city council authorize a contract change order in the amount of $196,000 to Proactive Engineering Consultants under their on-call agreement for professional service engineering services for the design of Bemis Elementary Safe Routes to School project, and authorize the city manager to execute all related documents. The Rialto Safe Routes to School programs are sustained efforts by parents, schools, community leaders, and the city to improve the health and well-being of children by enabling and encouraging them to walk and bicycle to school. As a result, these programs make bicycling and walking to school a safe and more appealing transportation choice, thus encouraging a healthy and active lifestyle of students. There are several key milestones of the current plan, which was completed and accepted by the city in 2019 and funded by a Caltrans grant for $1.4 million. On your slide here, you can see some of those key milestone dates. And specific to Bemis Elementary, the City Council adopted Resolution Number 8171 on November 14th, 2023, accepting $716,745 in grant funding, which is separate from the original Caltrans grant, and dedicated the funding towards Bemis Safe Routes to School improvements. There are 4 current Safe Routes to School projects in various states. The Bemis Elementary School, which is this agenda item, is currently in the planning stage. Should council approve tonight's item, the project would transition into the design phase and incorporate the numerous elements outlined on the slide. Further, the design phase develops the construction and bidding documents and prepares the project for public bidding. This item was presented to council at the January 23rd meeting, and the council posed several questions to staff to ensure this is a successful project. The council instructed that this item return and to provide answers to those questions. So regarding the utility and conflicts, several field visits were performed to identify potential issues within the proposed project area. Through these efforts, staff is aware of one location that may pose a possible conflict and require coordination with utility service providers. We will better understand the limitations through the design process and how to work around or address these conflicts or any others that may be identified. Regarding implementing bicycle lanes on Pepper Avenue, because the adopted Safe Route to School improvements that are proposed or within this plan are conceptual. The original improvements included bicycle lanes on Pepper Avenue. These bicycle lanes were omitted from the design proposal request for this project because bicycle lanes, the lane striping is included in the current San Bernardino city-led Pepper Avenue reconstruction project. So in closing, I'd like to mention that there is sufficient funding to issue Proactive a design contract. This project is currently grant funded for $716,745. In addition to the grant funding, a local match of approximately $758,000 has been budgeted through Measure I Fund, which brings the total budget for this project to $1,174,000. Thank you. And this concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
All right, thank you. Did you have a question, Councilmember Trujillo?
Yes, yes. I see, there's ADA ramps. Some of the questions I had is just the placement of some of the additions that you'll be adding. I see school signage, some of the additions. I see, trying to see what other structures you have proposed here. Are you also proposing signalized intersections?
So not signalized intersections, no. One of the items that's currently in Bemis, in the area there, is a lit crosswalk.
Okay.
And that's outdated, problematic, and what we've been using throughout the city is a rapid flashing beacons. So you've seen those at Eisenhower. Recently we installed those. Downtown we installed those. So we'll go to more of a standardized there. There's a sidewalk improvement. We know there's a lift there that's included. There's at least one site. So there's crosswalks, signage, things like that that'll be improved. And the slide wasn't a full capture of everything.
Okay.
It's just a summary.
And I just wanted some guarantees because I think it's just really important to just have kind of the space for ADA for any of our sidewalks. And, we have a history in our city with just adding kind of obstructions to our sidewalks. And I just want to make sure that with these projects, as we're trying to improve the walkways, that we're not intentionally trying to put obstructive structures that will keep people from being able to walk back or use a wheelchair to go back and forth.
Right, and that's one of the key components of this, to identify that, because we have a lot of cross slopes and things like that we have to be mindful of, and even right-of-way in certain areas that it's narrow, and that's what this design will identify.
And I see it goes into San Bernardino. Is there any kind of coordination with what's going on the other side?
It'll stay within the city limits itself, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I have a couple of questions. Following off what Councilmember Trujillo said, I know that you said this will stay within the city limits. However, when we did a comprehensive assessment of state routes to school, which this is one of them, in that document, it was identified that the signal at Pepper and Etiwanda was a part of a safe routes to school, and we had discussions about everybody sharing in the costs. So I'm still wondering, why is it not being identified? Maybe you can explain what's the schedule for the city of San Bernardino and the city of Rialto to put that in, because even since then, and with the road improvements, and as you know, and the improvements on the curb cuts, ADA curb cuts, the concern is, I'm being told that everybody's gone out and made the appropriate setbacks for a signal at some point. But again, that's a concern, because that Pepper Avenue is probably one of the two busiest roadways along this corridor, with the exception of Riverside Avenue. So I'd like to know that, and then I have a question about the sidewalks.
Okay. Yes, Mayor, and you are correct, and that's one thing that the Safe Routes to School plan did identify as Pepper being a high-volume street.
And that in that particular intersection, Etiwanda and Pepper being a concern about safety.
Yeah, and in the conceptuals, they did include a traffic signal in there and improve as a proposed improvement. So we did do a traffic study last year on that intersection. We've had some conversations with San Bernardino. It did not meet all of the warrants, that intersection, to install a traffic signal. We also sought funding as part of the BEMIS to install the traffic signal, and this is part of TDA Cycle 3. The TDI grant reviewers said, no, we will not put in a signal. Signals speed up traffic around schools, because when you get a green light, you don't stop. So what we've done recently at that intersection is installed a blinking stop signs. So to help visually represent or see that, so the public can see that and notice that. But that's kind of the backstory on grant and pursuing funding for that signal, and also the denial from TDA Cycle 3 to fund that and the reasons.
We still have truck traffic going down that corridor, which we had expected that we would not. We decommissioned it, but we found that we had to coordinate that with the city of San Bernardino. And when we came back earlier this year, I was told that we're still was waiting for a letter that the city of San Bernardino was supposed to take action on at their council to authorize it. And I haven't heard back from whoever. I look over to law enforcement because I thought that they were also taking that lead or had some role in that. So, and to sit and say we haven't had, what, an accident, or we haven't had a kid hit, because we've had accidents out there.
Correct.
And I can't imagine what level of warrants we need and how many. Again, I'm familiar with the warrants, and I'm surprised that you're standing here saying that it doesn't meet warrants. What, in our side, or collectively, because half of the road, maybe even three, is under San Bernardino's jurisdiction, and half is under the Rialto. So I would really question that statement. I really would. And I have a real problem with that, being that I've watched and witnessed accidents in that intersection, because you do know that's primary way to go home. And I think every so often Mayor Pro Tem Cordellis finds himself on Pepper, except for when he can't stand the backup. So I have too. So I really have a problem with that statement, but it's made publicly. So I'd ask that I be able to have a discussion with someone, and I think warrants usually fall under the police department, at least some of the data to help support it. So I'm asking that I see that, Mr. Carmody. Okay? And then, because we're talking about safe routes to school, and the design elements is ADA ramps, crosswalk improvements, street signs, street striping, plan processing, whatever that means, medians and coordination, those are actions, not dry utility coordination, bid documents, engineering. Where in there do we look at the sidewalk itself, besides it being ADA wide enough to accommodate? And I asked that because I had to call attention that the sidewalks were lifted by the trees that were in the easement. So we went out there and we made improvements and fixed the lift. Mm-hmm. But apparently one part of the lift wasn't high enough because we left it. I guess we needed to wait for it to lift high enough so we'd come back and do it. So I would ask that you go back and look at that, because it was already lifted, but we did 2 of the 3 lifts. I don't know why.
I'll look into it.
So if we're going to do a safe route to school, we need to make sure all those areas from the intersection over to the other one, those trees are not lifting them, because you know that they did. And we left one. And so I think it's time to move on this project. I'm not really happy with that answer, but that's what you publicly said, and so I'm going to have to find out. And nobody said anything about the status of the letter. So, City Manager, will you follow up? Maybe reach out to the city manager in San Bernardino and find out why there's an objection, because I don't think the community along that corridor is in favor of keeping trucks, and there's no commercial activity between Baseline and Foothill. So I don't know why they would want to continue to keep the truck activity on there. But somehow we are in a position, because it is joint jurisdiction, that we have to get them to also sign off on it.
Understood.
All right, so with that, you guys want a motion, if that's what you're ready to act on?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Scott and seconded by Councilmember Trujillo. Roll call.
Councilmember Scott.
Aye.
Councilmember Trujillo.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carrie Sanders.
Aye.
Mayor Robertson.
No. I'm not accepting the comment. No warrants justified not having a signal. All right, that concludes all of our activities so far. And we will be returning to closed session, so why don't we take the opportunity up, and we have what's going on. I don't have, oh, sorry. Let's get in here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm standing in tonight for our Parks and Recreation Director, who's away at a conference this evening, to share with you the what's going on in Rialto slides. Here we go. Oh, where'd they go? There we go. Okay, so what's going on? Teen Glow Hunt registration opens March 1st. The mobile recreation in Ferguson Park is this Saturday, March 2nd from 9 to 12. The State of the Women event is also this weekend on March 2nd at Cal State San Bernardino at 9 a.m. The North Rialto Little League is March 2nd at Birdsall Park at 9 a.m. Swim lesson registration opens March 2nd and 3rd. The pickleball workshop is at Ferguson Park March 2nd at 9 a.m. Volleyball and basketball registration opens March 4th at 7 a.m. Rainbows and Unicorns Senior Social at Grace Vargas Senior Center is from 2 to 4 p.m. The Rialto Pony opening ceremony is March 9th at Bud Bender. The time is to be determined. Rialto Eastern Little League opening ceremony is March 9th at Frisbee Park at 10 a.m. Girls softball opening ceremony is March 16th at Frisbee Park at 10 a.m. The Passport Day is March 16th at 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Rialto basketball team's they're going to 2 tournaments in March. Palm Springs, March 16th and 17th, and the Inland Empire tournament is March 23rd and 24th. There are 6 Rialto teams that will be going to both tournaments. And then we have a save the date for some big events that are coming up. The spring extravaganza is March 30th at Frisbee Park. The color run will start at 9 a.m. around the park, and the extravaganza starts at 10 a.m. Wristbands are on sale. And the Grace Vargas Senior Center Stacks on Stacks Pancake Breakfast is coming up in April. So there's a lot coming up, a lot to look forward to. Thank you.
Now, please. Councilmember Scott.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, just one item. I'd like to request that the city attorney place on the next agenda the item for an item of discussion and approval, an item that was passed by ordinance by the County of San Bernardino, Chapter 82.22, Sphere Standards Overlay. If you recall, that's an item you and I discussed in EDC with staff, and it relates to the fact that the city has an ordinance in place that allows cities to adopt the ability to have some say-so over anything that gets built in a county sphere. We requested staff from Development Services to move forward with that with the city attorney's office, which the city attorney's office did do. However, staff has failed to bring that item forward. So I would like to direct them to bring it forward. And what it does is it allows us, any projects the county's building in a sphere, it will require them to meet city standards for that project. And as you know, as you and I know, and the rest of the council, I would hope knows, there are a lot of county projects, namely warehouses, coming into our, being proposed in our spheres that we need to have some say-so about, and certainly need to have the ability to recoup some revenue from. So if it's okay, I would like to have it on the next city council agenda. I believe it is ready to go, and it's just a matter of us adopting it and sending it back to the county. There are 18 cities that are on this list. Only 2, the city of Fontana and I believe it's Victorville, has adopted it. No, Fontana and Apple Valley are the only 2 cities that have adopted it. And I think it's really because none of the cities knew about it. So I would hope that we would move forward with adopting it.
Councilmember Trio?
Yeah, on the, we did talk about our specific plan earlier today about with the foothill and downtown corridor. I was going to ask staff if they could also provide us with copies of the RENA numbers and the plans in our sphere of influence as well. I'm hearing that the county, does is planning in our sphere of influence, and I actually want to know what they're actually planning for the RENA and the housing element. Something that we took time to kind of put together here. I'm really interested to see if they have any plans for any of our islands or any of our areas just right outside the city. Kind of want to have a better picture of what's happening to our to the areas just right outside. So I don't know if our staff can give us some copies of those plans, just so that we could kind of just have an idea of what we're looking at for growth.
Through the chair, certainly. I just had a question for clarification. The matter that Councilmember Scott asked about, as I understand it, we've got a couple of members that aren't going to be at the next meeting, and so if it's all right, we'll schedule that one for the one when those 2 members that are going to be missing next time return.
Well, you know what? I think you brought up a good point, and we probably need to be discussing the next meeting,
Okay.
given that one member is already in recovery.
Right.
Madam Mayor, if I could add to that, unfortunately, through a doctor, I am grounded
Okay.
for at least the month of March
Again?
and April. Again,
Again.
I spent 8 hours at Loma Linda last night.
Okay. Okay, well,
We'll coordinate those dates.
good.
And then I wanted to bring up
Point well taken, noted, though. Thank you.
And then just to finish, I wanted to bring up 2 young ladies. I have Sarah Urrieta. Would you come up and introduce yourself? She's one of my staff members, as well as Stephanie. Is Stephanie still here? Stephanie Orozco? I think she might have stepped out. But definitely just, if you want to just introduce yourself, she's new to my staff and my intern here in the city.
Good evening, everyone. Mayor, council members. My name is Sarah Urrieta. I am currently attending Grafton Hills College in Puebla.
You turn your mic on, please.
Again, my name is Sarah Urrieta. I am currently attending Crafton Hills College in Yucaipa. I am, like Mr. Trujillo said, his intern, and I'm just very excited to learn more about the city and see how we can help you guys out a little bit. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then that's it. Thank you.
That's it. Mayor Pro Tem,
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
go right ahead.
I attended a few ribbon cuttings and grand openings here in the city, along with the mayor as well. We were both at the Rialto Metro, which was we had some news coverage, Channel 7, Channel 9. I didn't see any of it. Did you see any of it, Madam Mayor?
What? No.
Any? No? They were all there. I wasn't sure. But anyway, it was really, it's the first affordable transit-oriented development here in the city. So glad to see that we are moving on getting our housing numbers up. And also attended the Black History Celebration at, there you go, Black History Celebration, along with the mayor as well. And we were, it was really nicely crafted by the Rialto Unified School District. Mayor and I also, well, it was the mayor's direction, but she took the initiation of getting Mr. Kenny Clark placed for the
Recommendation.
made a recommendation. So we'll just have to sign him up, but
Yes.
made a recommendation to actually get him inducted into the Rialto Hall of Fame. So that was a really good announcement, and the family was very surprised. The family lives out of town, and so does he. So it was nice that they were able to make it out. And lastly, I have a request. Mr. Brown, there's been I need some updates on some things that, and you don't have to have answers now, but I'd like to get an update for the council regarding Frisbee Park and the slide and some of the things that happened with the some of the equipment that was delivered and faulty from the beginning. I asked for this, and whether we have a positive outcome or a negative outcome, somebody needs to circle back and let us know that these things, either they worked out one way or another. But we really need to pay close attention when we're spending millions of dollars on projects, on whether it's a park or a sidewalk or anything. If we have questions that our community is asking us about, you guys have to come back and circle back to us and let us know what happened, because a lot of times time goes by and maybe you didn't get an answer, it wasn't an answer that you think is favorable. We still need to know. So if you could please give us a report back on what happened with some of that equipment over there. And also, I know there was at Joe Sampson, there was also some equipment that failed within the same warranty time frame. So I'd like to get an update on that and to see if some of that equipment was replaced, because some of it was dangerous. So I want to make sure that whatever happened there, that we know exactly what the outcome was, and whether we're replacing it, or just like to know exactly how and what we're doing about it. And that's all I got, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Okay, well, a couple of things. I'll try and be quick, just to follow up with what Mayor Pro Tem said about this Black History Celebration event at Carter High School. I want to say it was an outstanding performance by the youth and the kids, and their recapping of historical activities within Unsung Heroes was the theme of the whole thing. And again, hats off to the school district, did an outstanding job. And what Mayor Pro Tem said was, yes, they, as a special guest that wasn't on the program, they had Kenny Clark, who graduated from Carter High School. And a number of you may know that Kenny is with the Green Bay Packers, defensive tight end, number 97, has been doing very well. And so he made a surprise appearance. He had been at the parade that had been asked to be over in Fontana. And so the kids were excited about that. Not only that, his mother and his father was there. And so I did say that I would be making a recommendation going through our process, and I would think that we certainly would support that, to have him inducted into the Hall of Fame. I believe the other person that we've had that has come through our school system that we all know about to date, and someone can correct me if there's someone else, is Ronnie Lott. I don't know if we've had any others, so hopefully. And then I found out today that our Hall of Fame event has been moved up. I know it was last year, didn't quite understand the process, but it is in September, the first week in September. So that's pretty much what was there. We had a lovely opening, even though it was raining, amazing, with the Metro View, but it was still a great turnout. I would like to say welcome home and get well to Miss Faye Coates. I don't know if some of you know, but Faye had been in the Rialto acute care facility for, I guess, a couple of months due to dehydration. I went and saw her on Sunday, and she was released on Monday. So she's back home, hopefully with with support services or what have you. But we did get a call. I was informed by the city clerk's office, Miss Maria, that she called and she had indicated she unfortunately would not be able to attend the State of the Women event that's coming up this Saturday, 18th annual at Cal State San Bernardino, due to a death in her family. So I'd like to extend condolences to her on that. Faye has definitely been a figure in our community, and she did share that she's 93, and she's still looking like she plans to do everything that she's been doing. And then I would just like to take the liberty. I had the pleasure this morning to speak with my grandson, who I think I've told you, he was in Kuwait. And the funny thing was this past weekend was his birthday, the 24th of February. And I just would like to say happy birthday to Jeff, because his birthday, it's a 12-hour difference. So we'd have to set the clock to make sure we wake up, or by the time I told him happy birthday, he was already through half of the day of his birthday, or it had already started. So anyway, looking forward and really praying that he will be able to, he should be returning from offshore and back stateside by the end of March. And so looking forward to that. And so with that, I think that's it for me. And I would ask if anyone else have any other item. We will be returning to closed session. So motion to return to closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's no objection, so we will be returning to closed session. Thank you. I'd like to call this meeting back to order at 8:58 PM, and I would like to ask our council if you'd like to report out on closed session.
Mayor, thank you. We had one item left that was unconcluded after the closed session prior to the regular meeting. That was the public employee performance evaluation of the city manager. And council did complete that item, and I don't believe there's any reportable action for that item tonight.
All right, thank you. And before we adjourn, I would like to just note that I meant to do it before we went out to say that this will be our executive assistant, Angie Perry's last council meeting. That she will be retiring on March 7th, and there will be a farewell for her on March 6th. But I've also asked that she will return at our next council meeting, well, not the 9th one, but the 2nd one, so that we can actually give her a certificate recognition of her outstanding work for us in the city of Rialto. So with that, I'll entertain an adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Trujillo, seconded by Councilmember Scott. No objections, we're adjourned. Thank you.